Now, around 6 p.m., the protest turned into a march towards the 3rd Precinct, where it is believed that the officers worked. A much smaller group than the initial protest started vandalizing the building, shattering a window, spray painting squad cars and the side of the building. Officers then showed up in riot gear and started firing tear gas and flashbangs, which you can hear going off right now, as many protesters were hurling rocks, water bottles, anything they could get their hands on towards the officers. The unruly crowd measured in hundreds, a far cry from the peaceful group that started the protest.
I'm wondering, what are you telling your officers right now? Because it appears that there is no police presence at the Target, for example, or the Auto Zone or the liquor store, several of these areas that have been looted. We certainly hear your point. There are many more peaceful protesters than looters. However, this is very real and happening right now. So what's the plan as far as the police are concerned?
Right now, our main priority for our officers there are the safety of those who are out there. So we do have peaceful protesters who, just by the dynamics, are in the middle or in the mix with those who are causing some of this destruction.
I just want to put a call out. I don't know if any of the mayors or the governor or any chiefs are listening right now, but I feel the city, the state needs to hear from our leaders. Yes. We need to hear from you. We are in complete chaos in Minneapolis and St. Paul. Please call in. Please respond to the questions that your citizens are asking of you. Why were these decisions made? What is the plan? People are getting incredibly scared, and I know everybody watching tonight, we all understand what this stemmed from. We do not want to downplay that. There are some really big issues we need to deal with. This is a very clear message being sent by a lot of people, and at the same time, this is now devolving into a situation where people are not safe. And we want you to know at home, we have tried. We are trying to get people on the phone, the decision makers, to explain the thought behind this and to explain what the plan is. We also understand, as AJ said, in St. Paul, for example, they are stretched incredibly thin. I mean, these looters, they're hitting every area they can as quickly as they can. Here's the tweet now, Randy, if you want to.
From the city of Minneapolis, it says, we're hearing unconfirmed reports that gas lines to the 3rd precinct have been cut and other explosive materials are in the building. If you are near the building for your safety, please retreat in the event the building explodes.
Wow, let's just leave that up for a minute and let that sink in. That's officially coming from the city of Minneapolis, that there could be big explosions. And we know people are down there near the building. I don't know how those people are going to get this message. This is just outrageous. This is an outrageous night.
The official protest started around 5 p.m., where organizers applauded the firing of those 4 Minneapolis police officers involved in the incident, but they called on the city attorney to arrest and charge those officers. As the protest grew, it moved down to the Minneapolis Police 3rd Precinct about 2 miles away, and that's where things started to get more violent. That's where we saw people throwing rocks at police cars, at the precinct building, people spray painting police cars. That's also when the rain really started coming down, and we saw a lot of people leaving. Before all of that escalation, though, we did talk to protesters about why they came to South Minneapolis to demonstrate.
Hey, we got Jackie Chan in this bitch. Hey, 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 hey.
Are you going to ask the governor's help with the National Guard?
Yes. I have made that phone call to the governor and it has been requested.
And was there a response back from him?
The governor and the state have been very helpful.
Okay.
But I would further direct that I believe they'll be in contact shortly.
Last Wednesday night, as the target near the 3rd Precinct was being looted, the mayor got an urgent call from Police Chief Madaria Arredondo.
And he said, Mayor, if this continues, I do not think there is any way that our police department is going to be able to handle this crisis on our own. Mayor, I'm asking you to ask for the National Guard.
Fry says he immediately asked the governor for the National Guard, but they weren't out in full force until Saturday.
I think what you expected me to do is to be there is we were in a support role as state law shows. And once it became apparent to me that the city of Minneapolis would not be able to complete that, I was directing the state to take that over. But I think in the moment of making sure, as those decisions were being made and that we were staying in the lane that we were asked to support this, and as it deteriorated, it was at 12:05. There was a decision last night that we made is to come in front of you at that time because that was the transition point, because what you're seeing now is the state is the lead element now, starting at 12:05 last night and those first missions that were carried out.
There were millions of Americans and Minnesotans certainly watching on their TV screens as this unfolded last night. There was almost a complete lack of visibility of local police, state police, National Guard. After much fanfare about how the National Guard was coming in, people watched buildings burn, public and private. How could there not have been a clear mission for the National Guard when they were called in and you knew things were going to happen last night?
Yeah, I will let my leadership come back up there. You're absolutely right, and I think that speaks to itself that by shortly after 10 o'clock, it became apparent that that structure would go. The way this works is the mayors ask and they take charge and lead on the missions. I'll let the folks come up here said, I see that too. I think the decision to not engage. And I want to just be clear, there's philosophically an argument to be made that an armed presence on the ground in the midst of where we just had a police killing is seen as a catalyst. My point to that is we don't need a catalyst. It's already burning. And so this is trying to strike that balance. And so I am in total agreement with that. You will not see that tonight. There will be no lack of leadership, and there will be no lack of response on the table.
Follow-up, should there have been a National Guard presence on every corner in those areas last night as a deterrent, as opposed to having them come in
well, I would ask, and I'll answer this one, potentially, but the decision on that, as it's made from the city, and on this one, I think I would agree with them. We saw the first night, decisions were made. Up until about 8:30 last evening, it appeared that things were relatively peaceful on that. There was a decision during the day whether did you occupy the entire city and shut it down after those 24 hours. In retrospect, I'm assuming that, yes, we would say that. But at the time, and again, we will not know it because proving the negative, would it have simply started those that movement faster, and would we have seen it moved out of the 3rd precinct? But, yes, certainly, it's a valid critique and point. Yes?
Governor, you know, there was uncontrolled looting in St. Paul yesterday afternoon, and you're talking about making decisions at 10 o'clock. Why are you making the decisions then and not coming up with these scenarios as these things are happening just up the street from where...
The leadership of communities is led by local leadership, their police force. They were at that time, had sources in reserve, they were not being requested. They were not being requested, and I'm on with them. The reason we're standing here today is, if this would have been executed correctly, the state would not lead on this. The state would have supported those, and they would have moved forward. That did not happen. So now today, we're taking that. We're making the decision to go and moving forward. And again, I would go back to Tom's question. Had I known that we were not going to see that or the capability to do it, should the state have come in? Potentially, but I want to be very clear. This, with the exception of the state troopers who have a very specific statutory requirement on the highways, order is to the local police and sheriffs. We do not have a built-in police force. General Jensen is not a police force. DPS has experts in there, but these are not the police force that are on their streets with their people. And so that's a decision that was made. It was in reserve, and yes, keeping in mind as this unfolded, the request came from St. Paul for the Guard to be activated at 5. I had moved on a warning order earlier than that to be prepared. You're really supposed to wait until you get that and start moving them in. That wasn't going to be possible. So by 5 o'clock yesterday, our Guard troops were coming from all over. They were getting activated because of the events that happened the night before, and we were prepared to carry out those missions. And they were there. And as you heard some of these folks, those missions never came.
Thanks for joining us. We begin right now with breaking news in Minneapolis. As you can see, a group of rioters, protesters fire cars on fire. This is in the 5th precinct area of Minneapolis along Lake Street. And this is just happening just in the last few minutes. We've been able to see these pictures coming in from this part of Minneapolis.
Yeah, we've been following the situation, which had remained fairly peaceful throughout the night. A lot of people disregarding the curfew, but not a lot of violence or fires breaking out at that point. Unfortunately, it appears that is possibly about to happen right now in the 5th precinct, just down the street from the 3rd precinct that was decimated last night.
The National Guard, which is behind State Patrol, you can see them on top of the campers up there, and then maybe about 100 officers from Minnesota right in front are telling people, really demanding that people push back. They march and they say, move forward, and then we hear on the loudspeaker that you are in violation for assembling in an unlawful place right now. They are trying to push people out of this area near the 3rd precinct. The 3rd precinct, for reference, is just maybe about, what would you say, about 2-3 blocks west down Lake Street, where we are right now. So they're blocking that off. Just about 10 minutes or so ago, we were live. Basically, if you make an L shape, go down straight where you're looking, and then we were live down a block. And we were also starting to see officers, although not to this scale, pushing people back.
And State Patrol has pulled up here at Franklin Avenue and Nicollet. I'm not sure what they're doing, but they're getting out of their vehicles. The officers appear to be in riot gear. Here, let's carefully get a little bit closer, and they're dispersing the crowd, or at least people are starting to run out of fear of what may occur. State troopers have gotten out of their vehicles. It appears as though they're trying to prevent this march from going. Tear gas has started. Again, we are at the intersection of Franklin and Nicollet, just south of downtown. And State Patrol came flying in west down Franklin, cutting this march off in half. And now they've effectively prevented this march from going any further. It's been split into two. They're holding the line. Look how quickly they got into formation and caused this group to scatter. The people that were in that immediate intersection were met with flashbangs and tear gas. And now this whole entire situation has been fractured right in the center. Okay, we have National Guards members pointing.
So right now we are here at Precinct 2, Minneapolis Police, Precinct 2. This is in northeast Minneapolis, and just about 2 minutes ago, National Guard troops started to roll in. You can see the line here with their heavily armored vehicles coming on in and equipment, and it just keeps coming. And you can see that they've already built this huge barrier around the police precinct here. So far, we really haven't seen destruction of a mass extent in this neighborhood or at this police precinct, but clearly they are ready for it tonight here in northeast Minneapolis. Just take a look at the number of National Guard troops coming in here to apparently guard this police station. Again, this is Minneapolis Police Precinct 2 in northeast Minneapolis.